The first ship crossed the invisible line into human space without slowing down. Its hull shimmered under the faint light of a distant sun, a proud silver color that reflected the stars. Inside, the crew laughed. The alien traders had passed. This way many times before, slipping past rumors of danger. To them, the stories of human cruelty were only old spacer tales told to frighten rookies. They didn't believe humans could be as dangerous as the whispers claimed. The convoy was large 12 ships in total. They carried rare metals, precious spices from distant worlds, and technology they hoped to sell at a profit in human markets. The lead captain Zorak, of the Polari species, sent a bright, cheerful greeting across all frequencies. His voice was deep, confident, filled with the certainty of someone who had never known real fear. "This is the Polari Free Trade Convoy entering human space," he announced. "We come in peace, bringing goods and open trade. On peaceful status." The message went out. No one replied. A few of the younger crew members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Shouldn't they answer us?" one of them asked quietly. Zorak grinned and waved the concern away. "Humans are a proud people. They don't respond quickly. But if they wanted to stop us, they would have done it already." Hours passed. The stars glided by, but something felt wrong. The navigational computer began picking up faint static, short bursts of sound that didn't match any known language. They came in irregular pulses, clicks, hisses, and deep thumps like something breathing in the dark. The convoy pressed on. On the third hour, one of the smaller cargo ships, Sunleaf, reported seeing strange movement. Its sensors detected brief flashes of light far off their starboard side light that appeared, then vanished instantly, without a trace. The crew scanned for ion trails, but found nothing. Zora called it ghost readings and ordered the convoy to stay in formation, but he didn't tell them that his own ship was also seeing strange signals and registered contacts that appeared for only a fraction of a second before disappearing again. It was as if something was there, just at the edge of detection, always watching. The static grew louder. One by one, the convoy's ships began experiencing minor malfunctions. Lights flickered, comm panels reset, navigational charts shifted without anyone touching them. No one could explain it. The Sunleaf's captain swore he saw a faint shadow move across his viewport, something enormous and silent, blocking the stars for just an instant. Then the Moonstone, a heavy freighter in the middle of the convoy, sent a sudden distress call. "Unknown contact closing fast." Too fast, too. The transmission cut off mid-word. Every ship in the convoy turned their sensors toward the Moonstone. She was still there, but drifting. No engine heat, no power readings, no life signs. The ship was cold. Zorak's voice shook as he ordered the convoy to maintain course but stay alert. They didn't make it far. The static in their comm suddenly cleared, placed by a crystal-clear voice. A human voice. Calm, deep, and terrifyingly certain. "You crossed the line." The words echoed across every frequency, every speaker. No background noise, no emotion, just cold fact. Zorak's first officer tried to respond, but the comms locked. The voice returned, this time with something new. "You do not belong here." And then silence. The crew stared at each other. No one knew what to do. Suddenly, the convoy's lead navigation systems all updated at once. Their destination coordinates had been erased, replaced with a single word: leave. But when Zorak tried to set a course out of human space, his ship refused. Controls locked. Thrusters powered down. The convoy drifted helplessly forward, deeper, into the unknown. On the outer edge of the fleet, the Sunleaf's pilot screamed. Something massive had appeared beside them, so close it blotted out every star. It had no running lights, no identifiable shape, just a dark void in the darkness. Darker than space itself. The sensors couldn't lock onto it, and then it was gone. One after another, the convoy ships began disappearing. No explosions, no debris, no flashes of light. They simply blinked out of existence. One moment they were on sensors, the next they were gone. Zorak shouted for all ships to break formation, to run in every direction. But no matter where they turned, the same dark shapes appeared ahead of them. Silent, watching, waiting, on the bridge of Zorak's flagship. The crew's panic turned into horror as the ship's internal cameras flickered. For a moment, the feed showed not their empty cargo holds, but figure stall. Armored shapes moving through the shadows. Humans. The lights went out. For a few heartbeats, there was total blackness. In the dark, someone whispered not over the comms, but from inside the bridge. The voice was close, far too close. Run. The lights returned. Zorak was alone. His crew. Dawn. Outside the viewport, the rest of the convoy had vanished. Only the silent stars remained, and then the final message came, not a voice, but a single line of text scrolling endlessly across every display in the ship. Leave human space. Zorak didn't remember how he escaped. The logs in his ship's computer were blank after that moment. All he knew was that when he finally regained awareness, his ship was floating far outside the border of human space. With no sign of the others, the convoy had entered human space. Only one had returned, and Zorak knew next time. Even he. One drifting ship had been reported only hours ago. A small patrol from the Varan sector claimed they'd found one of the missing Pelari convoy vessels, floating silently just beyond the outer edges of human space. The story spread like wildfire through the alien trade networks, fuel for the fearful whispers about the humans. Ambassador Kor didn't believe rumors, or at least he tried not to. He was a diplomat trained to deal in facts. But when the Varan patrol sent the visual feed, even his comm broke. The ship in the recording was pristine. No battle scars, no hull damage, no signs of distress. But the lights inside were dead. The windows, those great viewing panels along the side, were utterly black. No movement. No crew. The strangest part was the airlock. It stood open, like someone had simply walked in. Kor was summoned before his council. The chamber was filled with leaders from several alien worlds. Some wore bright ceremonial robes. Others were armed guards who refused to sit. The debate was tense. "This is the second disappearance in 3 months," one counselor said. "Humans must answer for this." "They will not answer," another replied flatly. "They never do." Kor listened as the arguments grew louder. Some demanded trade be cut off. Others insisted on a military response. And a few, the quiet ones, only wanted the border left alone. Finally, the high speaker turned to Kor. "You will go," she said. "Take an investigation fleet into human space. Find the truth." Kor bowed, hiding the unease in his stomach. He had been near human space before, but never across the border. And the stories always ended the same way. The investigation fleet was small 3 ships, each equipped with advanced scanning arrays. Their plan was to enter just far enough to study the abandoned Pelari vessel, retrieve any data, and return it. Began smoothly. The moment they crossed the invisible border, the temperature in Kor's cabin seemed to drop. The stars here looked sharper somehow, their light cold and unforgiving. They found the Pelari ship within hours. Up close, it was worse than the recording. The vessel hung in the void like a corpse. As their shuttle latched onto the hull, Kor's team activated life support scanners. The readings were wrong. "Environmental levels are perfect," the science officer whispered. "Oxygen, nitrogen exactly as it should be for the Pelari. It's like they could walk back in at any moment." But they did. Inside, the corridors were spotless. The cargo still stacked neatly in the holds. There were half-eaten meals in the mess hall. A chair still rocking gently in the crew lounge. But not a single living thing. Not a body. Not a trace of struggle. It was as if the entire crew had simply stood up one moment and walked away into the dark. Then the first message appeared. It flashed across the science officer's wrist console, though he hadn't activated any transmissions. Just one word. Levith. A message began repeating. Outside, the other 2 ships reported the same. Their navigation computers, their personal data pads, even the scrolling banners on the bridge all now showed the same glowing word. And then a voice came, a human voice. You have crossed into human space. You will turn back. Kor's first officer tried to respond, but the transmission system locked. The voice spoke again, quieter now, almost like a whisper pressed against the ear. This is your only warning. Before anyone could react, the Polari ship's running lights flickered on for the first time, and in the glow of the forward viewport, Kor saw movement dot figures, tall, silent, unmoving, now watching them from inside. The ship, the lights went out. When they returned, the figures were gone, and the word on the consoles had changed. It no longer said, "Leave," now it said, "Run." The return trip from the Polari ship never happened. Kor's fleet had just detached there. Docking clamps when the nav computers across all three ships updated without command input. The new coordinates glowed in stark white against the black star maps, no explanation. No request for confirmation. They all pointed deeper into human space. The science officer swore and tried to reset the system, but the course locked itself. The ship's engines hummed, then powered forward as if an unseen hand had taken control. Course come link chirped. For a moment, he thought it was one of his officers. But when the screen lit up, it wasn't a friendly face. It was a human, eh? Human male, eyes sharp, gaze steady. His face was close to the camera, so close that Kor could see the faint lines around his mouth. No uniform, no insignia, just a dark shirt and a voice that carried no emotion. "Turn," the man said. Then the feed went black. On every ship in the fleet, the same thing had happened. A different officer confirmed a teach vessel saw the same man, the same command, at the exact same moment. And each ship had received the same coordinates, still locked into their systems. They followed because they had no choice. The journey took them past stars that seemed colder than any they had ever seen. The space here felt wrong, not empty. Not vast, but watched. Their sensors kept flashing contact warnings, but every time they checked, there was nothing there. After hours of silence, the destination appeared a small outpost orbiting a dead world. It looked abandoned, its metal hull scarred and patched. No lights burned in its windows. But when they scanned the station, something made every officer in the room go still. The outpost was full of alien technology, not just from one race, dozens. Some were old enough to be considered ancient artifacts. Weapons, tools, banners, even personal items. All from species who had once crossed into human space. They were trophies. Kor's ship docked, and he led a team inside. The air was stale but breathable. The walls were covered in strange symbols, human script, carved deep into the metal. Every few meters, a mounted display case held some object from another world. The scaled helmet of a Rithian war captain. A ceremonial blade from the Saran tribes, a navigation core from a Threxian battleship. None of those species had been seen near human space for centuries. Deeper inside, they found a control room. The screens here were alive with data feeds, though no one sat at the stations. One feed caught Kor's eye. It was a list. Names of ships, dates, locations of entry into human space, and next to each name, one word: accounted. The most recent entry was the Pelari convoy. Every ship marked accounted. A sound echoed through the control room, a soft click, like someone closing a door. Kor turned quickly, but the corridor behind them was empty. Then the screens changed. The ship list vanished, replaced by a live feed from outside the outpost. In the darkness beyond, a massive shape drifted into view. Its hull bore no lights, no markings. It was bigger than any warship Kor had ever seen, but it moved with the silence of a shadow that comes crackled once more. The same human voice spoke. "You've seen enough." The screens went dark, and somewhere in the distance, Kor thought he heard the slow, deliberate sound of approaching footsteps. The warning from the human voice lingered in Kor's mind. But there was no time to dwell on it. The approaching footsteps never reached the control room. They simply stopped. Then, as if on cue, the docking clamps released without any input from Kor's crew. The ships detached from the outpost, their thrusters firing in perfect unison, mulling them away from the station. no one had touched. A control. The fleet's pilots tried to override, but every panel gave the same error message: command authority denied, before they could decide whether to fight the system or let it run its course. The sensors lit up. Something massive had crossed. Into their path a warship so large it made even Kor's cruiser feel like a shuttle. Its hull gleamed with a deep bronze finish, the signature of the Dravari Empire. Kor recognized it instantly. It was the Blade of Dawn, one of the Dravari's flagship dreadnoughts, and it was broadcasting across all channels. "This is high. Admiral Varshan of the Dravari Empire," the voice thundered. "Humans are a primitive threat. We will cleanse this sector." The Dravari were notorious for their arrogance. They believed themselves unconquerable, and their military victories gave them reason to think so. Kor's crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Dravari had just declared war right at the heart of human space. For a brief, tense moment, there was silence. Then the humans responded. It wasn't a voice this time. It was a sound. A single, low-frequency pulse that rolled through every ship like a physical wave. The consoles shook. Lights flickered. The Dravari transmission cut off mid-sentence. Moments. Later, the Blade of Dawn sent a distress call. Systems failing. Interference shields collapsing then. Silence. Kor's fleet tracked the dreadnought's position. It was still there, but moving, not under its own power being. Pulled, the readings were strange. It was descending toward what looked like a slow-moving asteroid, but as they drew closer, they realized it wasn't an asteroid at all. It was a structure, a massive, jagged shell of rock encased around metal. Portions of the surface peeled back, in huge mechanical sections, revealing an inner framework of black steel. The Dravari warship slid inside as if swallowed whole. The structure closed again, sealing the dreadnought within. The Dravari escorts for smaller cruisers tried to intervene, but they didn't last long. Something invisible ripped through them. No explosions, no weapons fire, just instant, silent disassembly. Their pieces floated in the void like they had been taken apart by a surgeon. Kor's comes buzzed again. This time the human voice was closer, almost conversational. "You should not be here, Ambassador." Kor swallowed, trying to keep his voice steady. "You took that warship. What do you want from us?" There was a pause. "Nothing," the voice said. "You'll leave, or you'll stay forever." The channel cut. In the distance, the asteroid No. The human structure was already drifting back into the darkness, shape melting into the shadows until it looked like any other rock. But Kor knew better. It wasn't a rock. It was a trap. And the humans had just demonstrated they could close it on anyone, anytime. The trap faded into the darkness behind them. But the dread in Kor's crew only grew heavier. For hours, their ships drifted in tense silence, sensors scanning every shadow. The asteroid structure had shown the humans could capture a flagship without a fight. Now, every patch of darkness looked like it might be hiding something worse. Then the fleet's long-range scanners picked up movement at first. It was faint just. A tiny spike in the readings, easily dismissed as background noise. But it kept coming back. And each time, the spike was larger, closer. Kor stood over the sensor officer's shoulder, watching the data shift. "How many?" he asked quietly. The officer's voice was low, as if afraid to speak too loudly. "Hundreds, maybe more." The ship's holographic display flared to life, projecting a map of the surrounding space. One by one, faint contacts began appearing on the edges. They didn't glow bright like normal ships. These were dark silhouettes, almost blending into the star field. And then the computer began to resolve there. Shapes, warships, hundreds of them. Each vessel was utterly black, built from sharp angular lines that seemed to swallow light. No running lights, no engine glare, no visible heat signatures. They hung in the void like the teeth of some enormous predator, motionless, but pointed directly at Kor's fleet. The comms officer's hands trembled over her console. "I can't pick up their drive signatures. It's like they're not even alive." "They are," Kor said quietly. They're just waiting. As if hearing him, every ship in the armada shifted at once. No acceleration, no buildup. Just instant movement sliding through the darkness and complete silence. The tactical officer blurted out, "That's impossible. It's nothing that size can." Her voice cut off when the first human ship appeared beside them. It didn't come out of hyperspace. Didn't decloak, it was simply there, as though it had always been in that exact spot. A second ship appeared off their port side, and a third, a fourth, a fifth. Within seconds, Kor's fleet was surrounded, boxed in so tightly that their escape routes vanished. The largest of the human ships eased forward. It was colossal, its hull so black that only its outline was visible against the faint glow of distant stars. Across its bow, faint letters glimmered in muted silver. Vigilant silence. Without a sound, boarding craft detached from its underside. They didn't use weapons to disable shields or breach holes. They simply latched on with a magnetic grip. And somehow the airlocks opened without resistance. Kor's heart pounded as figures stepped through the hatches. Humans, they didn't wear ornate armor or battle gear, just simple black uniforms. Their faces were calm, their movements precise. They carried weapons but didn't raise them. One of them approached Kor directly. He was tall, his expression unreadable. "You have crossed our border," the man said. "There is only one law here." Kor forced himself to speak. "What law?" The human's eyes locked on his. "Those who enter without permission belong to us." Kor glanced at his crew. The human's words were plain, but the meaning was a cold blade against the heart. They were alive for now, but only because the humans allowed it. The rest of the silent armada hung motionless in the void, weapons ready, patient as predators. Waiting to see what choice Kor would make, the warning from the human soldier lingered in the air like a shadow. No light could erase. Kor's ships were released, but not in any way that felt like mercy. The human boarding parties stepped back into their transports without a word, sealing the hatches behind them. The small craft detached, returning to the black mass of the vigilant silence. The larger warship withdrew into the dark, melting back into the rest of the fleet until it was impossible to tell where one shadow ended and another began. No one spoke for a long time. When the silence finally broke, it came not from Kor's crew, but from the CUM station. A priority transmission had arrived from the Coalition Council itself. The message was short: full mobilization, immediate advance into human space. All fleets to coordinate at Rally Point 7. Kor's stomach turned. He knew the Council's thinking. If the humans could be faced with overwhelming force, perhaps they could be contained. Perhaps the legends of their power were exaggerated. But Kor had seen enough to know the truth. Still, orders were orders. His fleet changed course. 2 days later, they arrived at the rally point. The sight was staggering: dozens of fleets from across the galaxy, representing more than 20 species. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, all arrayed in tight formation. The combined firepower was enough to turn a small moon into dust. When the invasion began, the initial advance seemed smooth. The fleets crossed into human space without incident. No challenge, no interference. Some commanders even began to believe the humans were retreating before their numbers. Then it started. The first sign of trouble was confusion orders from command ships suddenly contradicting each other. Squadrons broke formation, moving in circles, or scattering entirely. When officers tried to re-establish communication, the voices on the other end didn't sound right. Some were speaking gibberish. Others were speaking in the voices of their own loved ones. Kor's CUM officer clutched her headset, eyes wide. "Sir, I just heard my mother. She's been dead for 15 years. The panic spread fast. Sensors began detecting phantom fleets, entire groups of warships appearing on scans that didn't exist when visual systems checked. Ships fired at these ghosts, wasting ammunition, damaging allies in the crossfire. Then, the weapons started failing. Not jammed, not destroyed dead. Control systems wouldn't respond. Targeting arrays showed only static. In some cases, weapon systems began targeting their own ships. Kor's science officer pieced it together in horror. "It's not physical combat," she whispered. They're inside our systems, inside our minds. The Coalition's mighty fleets were breaking apart without a single human shot fired. Crews abandoned stations, some screaming, others sitting in silent shock. Entire vessels powered down, drifting helplessly, and then, the final blow, a pulse deep and lowered through the invasion force. Every ship, every species, felt it not in their ears, but in their bones. For a few seconds, every star seemed to dim. When the darkness lifted, the silent armada was there. Hundreds no. Thousands of black warships, motionless, surrounding what remained of the Coalition forces. No weapons were raised. They didn't need to be. The message was clear. The humans could have destroyed them all, and yet they hadn't. Not yet. The human voice came over the coms again, calm and unshaken. Leave now. This is your last chance. Kor knew it wasn't a threat. It was a promise. The Coalition retreat was chaos. Ships fled in every direction, most without formation or order. Some captains refused to break off, believing they could regroup and strike again, but those ships simply vanished. No explosions, no debris, as if they had never been there. Kor's fleet didn't wait to see how it happened. They followed the largest retreat vector, engines burning hard. No one spoke. Every shadow in the stars felt like it was watching them. Then a transmission cut across all frequencies. It wasn't human this time. It was one of the Coalition's own. The image snapped onto the bridge displays, showing the face of Captain Tether, a grizzled veteran from the Renari worlds. His skin was streaked with sweat, his voice urgent. "Listen to me," he shouted. "Do not enter human space. Do not send your fleets. Do not." The feed flickered. For a heartbeat, the captain's face froze. Then his eyes widened, his mouth opening mid-word. His voice warped, stretched, and a new voice slid into the channel. It was human, calm, quiet. "Do not ignore the warning." The image of Captain Tether dissolved into blackness. The comms officer tried to cut the feed, but every control locked in place. Across the black screen, new words appeared, glowing white. "We see you then. We are already here." One by one, the systems on Kor's ship came alive without command. Cameras activated on their own, showing corners of the ship no one had been watching: the engine bays, the sleeping quarters, even the bridge itself. In the corner of the bridge feed, Kor saw movement. A human figure, half hidden in shadow, standing perfectly still, watching the image cut out. Every ship in Kor's fleet reported the same thing. Every crew member swore they'd seen a figure somewhere aboard. Yet no human was ever found. By the time they crossed back into non-human territory, Kor knew the truth. It didn't matter if the galaxy stayed away from human space. The humans could come and go, as they pleased. The real border wasn't out there in the void. It was wherever they decided it was.